thank you for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Thursday, June 24th. We're excited to have everybody with us today. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. And we're excited about this session today. So first, as we start these, we like to recognize and appreciate all of our community partners. We have a lot of community partners that help support the boot camp, and they support it with their expertise, their time, and their effort, and we could not do these sessions without them. So the Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective is designed to help small businesses return from the COVID crisis stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by all those community partners, and not only is it the boot camp webinars, but it is the Resource Collective and the content library. You can find all this information at the bootcamp website. And this website, you went to it to register for today's session. And at the top of that page, you find the current sessions and the upcoming sessions. And then in the middle of the website, you'll find the Resource Collective. And the Resource Collective are tools and resources and guides brought to us by our community partners to help support small businesses. There's guides ranging from restaurants, manufacturing, retail, cosmetologists, construction, and others to help support various aspects of your business during this time. Additionally, as I mentioned, it is a content library. And we record all of these webinars, and we're in week 59 of the bootcamp series. So we've done this for well over a year. And as we record each session, it creates and broadens this content library. So we have over 140 sessions that have been recorded that include expertise by our partners, by experts in their fields on just about every topic a small business owner could face. We know that most small business owners are experts at what they do, but they're not experts at other aspects of running a small business. And so this content library can be a great resource to go back and find some of those areas that you want to improve upon and learn from these experts. So it's a great tool available to you. There's no cost for it as well. So anybody can go on and access those items. They're easy to find. If you scroll to the bottom of the web page to the archive section, and you can see it right there on that little fake Apple screen, it says archived. It's listed by week. You click on the plus button, it opens up the different sessions by week that we had, and you can find the different topics you're looking for. If you're looking for something in particular and you can't find it, feel free to let us know and we can guide you to the exact week and session as well. So with that, there's two other great websites we want to talk about. There's the state's COVID-19 information resource page, arizonatogether.org, as well as the Arizona Commerce Authority set up a COVID-19 Arizona Business Resources website. And that website has business guidance, financial information, and other programs to help Arizona businesses during COVID-19. Additionally, the ACA has a number of programs to help support small businesses in general. We have our Small Business Services, our Workforce Division, and our Arizona MEP, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Beyond these programs, we have our small business checklist. And a small business checklist is designed to help entrepreneurs that are looking to get started or grow their business to answer or respond to the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance requirements at the local, state, and federal level. There's also a lot of great information on business planning, business development, and procurement and marketing opportunities that you can find on that checklist program. It is very in-depth, and you can also, with those results, you can print those out and save them in a PDF version so you have easy access to it. So quickly run through some updates. There's not a lot of new updates, but I wanted to share some information that's very important. The links for these 4 topics will be posted in the chat, so you can access it in the chat screen. But PPP loan forgiveness, the SBA has some great information. It's a very important topic. We recently did a special boot camp session on this topic because there's about half the loans that were taken out for PPP have not requested forgiveness. And so we need to make sure that anybody that we know they got a PPP loan, you do have to apply for forgiveness. It doesn't come automatically. It does require an application through your lender. So very important piece there. Also, OSHA updated their COVID-19 guidance. So that link will show you with the most recent OSHA information on COVID-19 in the workplace. And then the SBA has expanded the eligibility for the targeted EIDL advance. And so that link will take you to that information on their website. And then a great link to just have handy is the Arizona district office for the SBA. We've got a lot of great information on there. One of the great tools that they have are SBA lenders based in Arizona. So great tools. So with that, let's look at the upcoming sessions today. We've got How to Be a Great Boss. On Tuesday, we have Consciously Addressing Unconscious Bias. On the following Thursday, Demystifying Research and Development R&D Grants. This is a real important one for small business out there because one misconception is that you don't qualify, but in talking to our expert that is doing this presentation, most Main Street small businesses can qualify for some of this tax credit program. And that's why we are doing this session, because there's a tax credit that is available to you and you may be able to get some of that funding there. So please join us for that one. And then on Tuesday, July 6th, right after the 4th of July holiday, we have a two-part series. The first part starting on the 6th on how to get on the first page of Google and beat your competition. That's part one. What's exciting about that is Google's actually going to be changing some of their algorithms, some of the requirements on how they do their SEO stuff, and we are going to share some of that information with you. Our expert has that information and is versed on it, so it's going to be an exciting session. So with that, we are going to turn the time over today to Tom Wessner, the CEO of Traction Squared. Tom is a business consultant, been doing it for 25 plus years, and co-founder CEO of Traction Squared in Scottsdale. So we're excited to have him with us. And Tom, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you. You're still on mute, Tom.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to share the screen here.
While Tom's pulling that up, everybody please use the Q&A for questions. We'll get to that later on for the questions that you have for Tom. And Tom may ask you to use the chat for some conversation back and forth in his presentation.
Well, thank you, Bob. Just to validate, you can see my screen. How to be a great boss. All right, awesome. So first, I want to welcome everyone for taking the time out of your busy day, busy schedule to listen to my presentation, my webinar here on how to be a great boss. I'd also like to thank ACA for the opportunity. My passion is helping other business leaders run better businesses. And so the opportunity that ACA has given me here to share some of the best practices that I've learned and coached my clients on. As Bob said, my name's Tom Wessner. I'm co-founder, CEO of Traction Squared, which is an entrepreneurial leadership team coaching business. And I started Traction Squared because I had a passion for helping entrepreneurial leadership teams get more of what they want out of their business. I've got 25 years of experience starting up, running my own businesses, as well as working in senior leadership roles for Fortune 500 and 100 companies. I've accumulated a wealth of knowledge, and as you all know, you learn from your successes and failures, and I've had plenty of both. I've seen it all, and I've learned a lot. Today, I really want to pull from my toolbox of some of the best practices for being a great boss. And some of the things that I coach my teams on, my clients on, is really just how to achieve three things I call vision, traction, healthy. Vision from the standpoint of getting your leadership team, your whole organization on the same page with regards to where you're going, how you're going to get there. And traction from the standpoint of giving everyone in your organization, getting them working with focus, discipline, and accountability. And third, healthy from the standpoint of getting your organization working as a healthy, functional, cohesive team that enjoys working together. That's my passion for today's webinar. I'm going to pull from my toolbox of leadership and management skills that really are essential to being a great boss. And I'm going to share those with you. And I hope that you find some benefit out of what I'm going to share. What specifically I'm going to share today are two key elements of being a great boss: leadership management practices that really drive, inspire, focus, discipline, and accountability with your staff. Of course, being a good leader, being a good boss really requires, it's based on an assumption that you take pride in your role and you genuinely care about the people that you're leading and managing. If you've got that, then what I'm going to share today can be tremendously helpful. If you don't take pride and you really genuinely don't care, then what I'm going to share today may not help you at all. So that's kind of the base assumption. Agenda for today: quick explanation of LMA, leadership management, driving accountability, and let's say being a great boss. I'm going to go through some key, basically skill sets about a great leader, also a great manager. And I'm going to ask you in the end, and as we go through this presentation, to kind of be mindful of doing a self-assessment as I go through the leadership practices and I go through the management practices. I know during these virtual or presentations, there's been a lot of talking at people. I really would love for you to engage your heart and mind, personalize the information that I'm going to share today. Think about how it's relevant to you personally and how you lead and manage people. Clearly, we all have opportunities for improvement. Hopefully today you'll take away some golden nuggets of areas, specific areas that you can improve in your leadership management to become a better boss. So encourage you one last time, pull out a pen, pencil, paper, or if you use your computer or your pad. I'm going to prompt you to take some notes and thoughts down as we go. So first, I'm going to start with ask you to put your boss hat on. I'm assuming that you're all here to be a great boss because you're either managing an organization, you're managing a work team, maybe you're even managing a business or a small group of individuals. With your boss's hat on, I want you to take a moment, and this is where you use your pen or your pencil. Take a moment and think about what's really working well within your business, your organization, or your team. Would you just quick top of mind, write down, you can think it through if you're a thinker and not a writer. Some people translate thoughts into writing. Write down top 3 to 5 things on paper that are really working. I'll give you just a moment. Really personalize this, it's important. And then as you do that, I want you to write down the person or persons you think are most responsible for the great things that are happening in your organization. Now I'm going to ask you another question, ask you to take a couple notes again. What's not working in your organization? Keep your boss's hat on. I want you to take a moment. Just think about what's not working within your business, your organization, or your team. Write down the top 3 to 5 on paper. Write down the person you think is most responsible. Person or persons. Give you just another moment. Then I want to congratulate you. Guess what? You are responsible for both. Those things that are working within your organization, your work team, or your group, and what's not working. Basically, great bosses, leaders take responsibility for both and realize how important their leadership role is in generating both what's working and also taking responsibility for what's not working. My hope today is to share a few practices with you that will help you maximize what's working and minimize what's not working within your organization. Next, I'm going to start this off with another question. But first I want to tell you a story, and the picture kind of is related to the story that I'm going to tell you. There was a CEO of a small aggressive startup. And that CEO, they had a dress code where everyone dressed really nicely because they worked a lot with their clients, prospects, and their clients directly. That CEO broke his foot in a sports accident and basically had to have a cast on his foot. Of course, he was torn from being away from work initially, and then he went back to work and he had to wear shorts. So he had a cast in shorts. It wasn't long and he had the cast removed, but his foot was still swollen. So he was able to get his suit on, but he wore tennis shoes. And he wore tennis shoes for a while because his foot stayed swollen for a number of months. What he realized after his foot quit swelling and he was able to return to his standard dress shoes that went with his suit, was he looked around one day and he saw a lot of the young professionals in his business were wearing suits, nice suits as part of the dress code, and tennis shoes. And he asked his head of HR, what's going on with my organization? It's like everyone's wearing the right suit, they're meeting the dress code, but they're all wearing tennis shoes. Why are they all wearing tennis shoes? And the head of HR turned to him and said, well, what you do, they do. And I think the lesson takeaway here that I want to express to you is, as a leader of your organization, your work team, or your group, what you do, if your team respects you, they will do as well. So what I want you to do is list one leadership thing that you do, a good thing that you believe has inspired others to do the same as well. Give you just a moment. Then I want you to also list one leadership thing that you do, a bad thing that has given others permission to do the same thing as well. And what I'm trying to get you to do is personalize your role and responsibility as a leader, a manager. This next thought is, what are you tolerating in the workplace? This picture here on the left is of Mike Ditka. Many of you maybe recognize the face. He's widely considered as one of the better coaches in the NFL. He coached the Bears for 11 seasons through 1982, 1992, getting a little dated now, but he won the Super Bowl and NFC championship 3 times. Mike is recognized as a terrific leader, a manager. He expected the best and didn't tolerate anything less. One of his famous quotes is, in life, you get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate. So with your manager hat on, I want you to think for a moment, list one thing that you do not tolerate that others respect and support. You basically get compliance of your staff because you do not tolerate it. Similarly, I want you to think about and list one thing that you do tolerate that others take advantage of. And you see what it's doing to your work team and productivity and your workforce. So after you've internalized those thoughts, I want to transition into, how are those relevant to being a great boss? Great bosses provide great leadership, great management. You got to have both. What's the definition at the 50,000 foot level of great leadership? Leadership is about working on the business, providing clear direction to your staff, to your people, creating openings for people to elevate themselves, elevate your organization. And it's about thinking about where you're headed and how you're going to get there. Management, on the other hand, is working in the business. It requires providing clear expectations, constant communication, doing, and execution. Next, what I'd like to share with you is really a high-level description now of what are the great leadership practices and great management practices. As I describe each one, I really want you to think about, personally think about, for the people that report directly to you, which of these practices and aspects of these practices do you do consistently with all the people that report directly to you? So if you can, on a piece of note paper, you'll get more out of this if you think through this and basically do the self-assessment as we go. In the end, I'll do a summary assessment so you can take your notes and kind of summarize your thoughts on how you're performing basically on these leadership characteristics is what I'll start with. So first, I'm going to go through the definition of a great leader. Great leaders give clear direction, not directions. So that's macro versus micromanagement. What does clear direction mean? It's you don't assume people know what you've told them. You seek clarity and make sure they understand. You provide a compelling vision that motivates people to take and follow your direction. You're specific about what you want to get done. You give timeframes as an example. You provide examples. You give alternatives so that people can make their own choices about how they think to best accomplish the direction. You set boundaries or bumpers so that people have the freedom to achieve their own mastery while fulfilling your direction. And you get confirmation, which is you seek to get confirmation from the individual that they understand your direction. So as we go along, what I'm going to suggest you do, simple yes or no. I want you to think about this number one. Do you give clear direction to everyone that reports to you on a consistent basis? So you can just write number one, yes or no. We'll jump to number two. So provided you've given clear direction to your direct reports, are you providing the necessary tools, the resources, the training, the technology that people need, the people support that might be needed to achieve the direction that you've given, the time and attention specifically yours? And it's so important that you give people the individual attention, the coaching, the teaching that they need to be successful. So I want to ask you just again, do a quick self-assessment. On a day-to-day basis, do you consistently provide the necessary tools, yes or no, for those people that report to you? We'll move to number three. So given that you provided clear direction, right? You've given people the support that they need, the tools, the support. Are you letting go? Great leaders let go. So you've given direction, you've given the tools. Are you getting out of the way? Are you letting people drive their own activity? Are you delegating to those individuals so that you can elevate them plus elevate yourself to work on what you're really good at? Also, a part of delegate and elevate is, are you ensuring before you delegate and you let go that the individual you're delegating to gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do the task that you're letting go on really well? Because if they don't, you're going to be in trouble. So are you letting go with every single employee, given that they get it, want it, have the capacity to do the task? Are you trusting them? And when and where they need help, are you taking action to help them? So just quickly, with all your direct reports, yes or no, are you letting go? Number four is, are you operating with the greater good of the organization in mind? The we, not the me. Are you providing clarity on your vision? Are you basically creating a motivating, compelling case for your reports? Do your decisions support the vision on a regular basis? Are your actions also supporting the vision? Are you living the values of your organization on a day-to-day basis, basically walking the talk? The way you operate, do the company needs come first above yours or anyone else's? Quickly assess yourself, yes or no. Are you operating with the we, the greater good in mind versus me with all of your direct reports on a consistent basis? Number 5, are you taking clarity breaks for yourself? So are you as a leader stepping back from the details of working in the business to work on the business? Analogy I would want to make here is you're in the middle of the rainforest trying to head home, you're chopping weeds, you're in the thick of the woods, you can't see where you're going. On a frequent basis, are you climbing a tall tree to get a clear view of where you're at, where you want to head, so that you can reset your direction and your confidence in that you're heading in the right direction versus meandering through the woods? Can you see the forest through the trees? Which by doing so helps you reprioritize, refocus your energy on the direction you need to head. Are you doing and taking these clarity breaks, because great leaders do, on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? Are they on your calendar? Are you taking them? Are you encouraging your staff to take clarity breaks? Simply assess yourself, yes or no. Now we're going to transition into the definition of a manager. So there are 5 leadership characteristics of being a great manager. Number 1, are you providing clear expectations to your reports? Basically, expectations go both ways. Not only are you expressing your expectations, but are you actually finding out from your direct reports what their expectations are of you? So mine and theirs. Are you clarifying their role, the values you're expecting them to live up to, the priorities that you have set for them, or they should have set for themselves, the metrics that their performance is being measured by? Are you setting the context of why their work is important and how it relates to achieving the vision that you have for the company? And are you meeting with them face to face to discuss your expectations so that you can get clarity of what your expectations that yours are and theirs? Are you making it a two-way mutual conversation? Are you writing your expectations down on paper? And are you getting their agreement and commitment to live up to those expectations? So yes or no, assess yourself. Are you demonstrating these clear expectations with all your reports on a consistent basis? Number 2, great management practices, clear communication. So establish rapport and connection with your reports so that you know what's on each other's mind. No assumptions. Oftentimes we get caught up and we share something that we think somebody understands and they interpreted it a completely different way. Great managers listen more than they talk. There's a study that showed the percentage of listen for a good manager, percentage of listening to talking is about 70, 80% to 30, 20%. Are you listening and asking questions more than you're talking? And repeat back 2 ways. Often a great way to get that confirmation of validation and validate that you're not making false assumptions is to have people repeat back what they believe the communication or the expectations are. Often it's studies show that for good parents and good managers, you got to say things 7 times. It's human nature for people to have to hear things 7 times before it really starts to sink in. 2 aspects of that: be patient and be willing to say things 7 times before you really understand that people are really absorbing and understanding what you're saying. Respect people's opinions and be open, honest, and vulnerable. Great way to establishing rapport is showing vulnerability yourself. Now, even though you've got clarity and communication, there's often conflict. And so part 2 of number 2 is basically dealing with conflict. And I lost my cursor here. So how do you deal with conflict when it emerges, which it's inevitably going to do? Schedule a conversation. Take it head on. Focus on what is going wrong and not who. Listen, listen, listen. Identify points of agreement and disagreement, both, and find ways, actually, you may have contributed to the issue and you might be wrong. Take responsibility. Prioritize the areas of conflict as you surface them, and develop a plan with your report of action to resolve the issue and follow through to make sure that it's been completed. Make sure that you build on success. Everyone likes to celebrate success, and it's a good way to making progress to resolve conflict. So rate yourself on handling conflict. How have you approached handling conflict with your direct reports? Give yourself a yes or a no if you've demonstrated these abilities, management abilities, on a regular basis. Third, great management practice is to establish a regular meeting pulse. That's a regular cadence of communication. And based on the work that's involved and the report that you have, you're going to set a different cadence. It might be daily, it might be weekly, monthly, whatever it takes to keep the employee engaged and moving forward. Keep a standing agenda. So it's often valuable to have a set agenda that you repeat every time you get together. Studies show that people like consistency. They know they like to have expectations of what's going to be reviewed so that they're prepared and able to follow and present the data you expect based on the agenda. And what you want in these discussions is an even exchange and dialogue. What you're really trying to do is smoke out issues, both with the individual, performance opportunities, and also where you can help them actually be successful. Your goal as a manager is to identify and remove obstacles for your report. And be sure to support and celebrate success. It goes a long way for winning people over and keeping them motivated and their heart and mind in the game. And most importantly is an open, honest exchange. And building an open, honest exchange really requires building trust. And it may not happen day one, but it's a gradual process where you build trust, you keep their confidence, you have open, honest, engaged dialogue. On number 3, I just want you to take a moment, rate yourself. How are you doing on management practice number 3, establishing a meeting pulse and conducting a regular meeting using these management practices on a regular basis? Number 4, are you conducting quarterly conversations? So the last one was micro level communications. This is kind of like a macro level. Goal of this one, quarterly conversations, is to keep it informal. You get out of the office, keep it informal. Maybe you have lunch, a coffee out of the office. You're really trying to figure out who your employees or your reports are and what motivates them so that you can more successfully manage them as individuals and lead them. Make sure that you're reviewing your values, your company values, your team values, and you're assessing individual performance. You're reviewing their role, what you expect of them, 5 responsibilities that you may have or more, and how they're performing against those. And you're having open discussion and dialogue back and forth about their performance. Now, this is informal, so nothing written down. It's just a conversation about helping your employees, your reports become the best they can be. If you have any other expectations, make sure you're reviewing those, assessing performance and giving feedback, good or bad. And you're always asking coaching questions to make sure that you know what their barriers are and how you can help them. It's also important to share examples, just like stories, examples of what they've done, specifically where they've done well, specifically where they've not. And also a big important part is ask them how you're doing as their manager or their leader. You might get some very insightful feedback on how they feel that your performance is. Number 5, reward and recognize. So rewarding and recognize is positive, recognize the positive, and negative feedback quickly. General rule of thumb from a best management practice is within 24 hours. Are you providing positive and negative feedback loops to your direct reports within 24 hours? Standard rule of thumb that you're probably all aware of is it's best to criticize in private. It can be very embarrassing for people and off-putting. Criticizing in public. Criticize in private, praise in public. Be their boss, not their buddy. You get too friendly with people and they begin to take advantage of you or make exceptions and or expect that you're going to give them breaks or leeway. So be their boss, not their buddy. Maintain boundaries and really enforce and follow through on a 3-strike rule. Many of you are probably familiar with the 3-strike rule. Basically, if an employee is not meeting expectations that you've shared before, they missed the first time you have that conversation with them, maybe you write it down. Second time is more severe. It's always good to have somebody else, another manager or leader there with you as you provide the second strike feedback. And a 3rd strike, strongly recommend that you take corrective action to either move the person to where they're a better fit or move them out of the organization. And again, it's best to have another business manager or HR partner accompanying you as you exercise the 3-strike rule. Importantly, promote fun, excitement, pride, and accomplishments. Oftentimes we're so focused on the challenges and overcoming the challenges that we forget to celebrate the small or the big wins, promoting fun, excitement, pride and accomplishments, and building momentum. So take a moment, score yourself on number 5. Are you practicing reward and recognition on a regular basis with all your direct reports? This is going to lead basically to, those are the 5 primary great leadership practices and the 5 primary great management practices that if you're doing all of those, chances are your employees are going to develop a lot of respect and motivation for your leadership and your management. So in summary, just if you didn't, here's just a quick question list again of the 5 leadership. Just going to ask you to think through this again. Are you giving clear direction? Are you providing the necessary tools? Are you letting go? Are you acting with the greater good of the company in mind? The we, not the me. Are you taking clarity breaks? From a management perspective, are you setting and keeping expectations clear? 2-way. Yours and your direct reports. Are you providing clear communication on a regular basis? Are you having the right meeting pulse with each and every one of your direct reports? Are you having those informal quarterly conversations where you're digging deep, you're building rapport and a relationship and figuring out what motivates people and how to motivate them? Are you rewarding and recognizing people for the wins that they've generated? With that, I just kind of want to, it's pretty short, succinct list. These are the best leadership and management practices that we teach in our coaching practice. And you'll be surprised at how many leaders have opportunities, and I'll say including myself, across all these categories. Often what we do with the leadership teams that I'm coaching is basically ask them to develop a personal development plan to get to be a great boss using these 5 leadership capabilities and the 5 management. So based on your self-assessment, and this is how I coach my leadership teams, keep doing the whys because they're creating big wins. Take the ends that you've identified, prioritize which ends are your biggest opportunities, creating the biggest setbacks, and or potentially the biggest advancements if you could change those to a whys. Commit to turning your ends to whys and often suggest by a certain date that makes it concrete and your plan is kind of hardened. Set an action plan based on that date and a timeline as you'll take on each one of these no's that you want to get to a why. Start to practice. You don't need to do them all at one time. I highly recommend you start with one at a time, roll it out, try improving your practice. And then as you convert each N to a Y, over time, you eventually get to your ideal target where all of these leadership and management practices are basically a why based on your self-assessment. So start with the highest priority, follow through, and ultimately where you want to get to as a good leader or manager is having your direct reports take the assessment of your performance. That's the ultimate truth test, which is having your staff give you feedback, basically taking the same test. How are you performing as their leader and their manager? Followed by pushing this leadership management practice down to your leaders and managers within your organization. In summary, what you will find is that great leadership practices and great management practices drive focus, discipline, and accountability throughout the staff that report to you within your organization. And I would equivalent focus, discipline, and accountability to being a great boss. And a great boss, a great leader, a great manager that inspires and motivates their people to operate with focus, discipline, and accountability. With that, we've got about 10 minutes left. Don't want to run long. Just want to shift in Q&A. I'm not sure if we had any questions in chat, but I just want to open the floor for any Q&A that anyone might have.
Excellent. So everybody use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen for your questions. We did have one question come through that everybody else may want to identify. Is the presentation is being recorded and the slides will be available on our website later today. If not later today, tomorrow morning, but they will be available for you to go back and review and watch again if you want, or share with others. So Tom, I do have a question for you while you're waiting for everybody else to put their questions in. What are some best practices you've seen from leaders or from good bosses on working with their teams when their team is remote?
Working with their teams when their teams are remote. Well, there's probably a variety of things. I would say one is staying in contact for sure, right? I know a lot of leaders and leadership teams have kind of gotten distant. So just similar as though you would be in person, and similar as I shared there in the leadership practices, continuing to have a steady cadence of conversations, one-on-one, and one as a group, and then two one-on-one. Having those, we'll call them the micro level discussions on a daily basis, and then the macro level discussions on a more, formal or informal quarterly basis, keeping that same dialogue that you would have face to face. And I know some people may find it comfortable to avoid those conversations. I just strongly recommend, it's even more important when you're working virtually and remotely, to really make sure that that cadence of conversations is happening on an ongoing basis. And all the elements that I presented here with regards to having clarity around the vision, the priorities, their role, their responsibilities, their performance on fulfilling and working towards that vision, fulfilling their responsibilities, are very important to continue to have. And I would just say more important in a virtual remote world.
Excellent, thank you. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions in the Q&A. I have a question I'm going to ask Tom, but attendees, I want you to answer this as well in the chat. Because one of the things I've done over the past, and I enjoy doing every so often, is reading a leadership book. So I'll try and improve my leadership abilities. Tom, what's a book that you've recently read that you would like to share about? And participants, if you've read something, post it in the chat. If you want to brag about a leadership book you read, throw it in the chat, and let's Let's see what you've got. Looks like Tom's going to actually go and grab the book.
I'm going to pull one off the shelf, and it's going to be most relevant because guess what it is? How to be a great boss. So a lot of what I shared today, plus more, is in this book on how to be a great boss. So if you really want to learn more contextual and more specific details, principles, and practices about what I shared today, which was at a high level, read this book, How to Be a Great Boss.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. We had a Melanie post in there, Discover Your Strength by Don Clifton. Great book. Anybody else want to share their favorite book? While we're doing that, we do have a question from James. It says, what do you recommend when dealing with a negative employee causing disruption in the organization?
Well, I think back on one of the slides, there was a slide on dealing with conflict, right? I think the best recommendation I would have, just using the material that I presented, is in your one-on-one, informal one-on-one. And I guess I would ask a question. I'm assuming that your business, or you as the business leader, have your core values defined. And I don't know if in your definition of your core values, you have things like positive attitude, can-do attitude. So if you do, I would sit down in a personal conversation to set the stage for expectations on living core values. And also set the expectation on positive motivational leadership and management. I would set the expectations about what you expect from that individual, how they operate on a daily basis. And what you're basically doing is setting the expectation for that employee, making it clear, then validate that they understand what those expectations are, because you want to help them live up to them. But I'd also suggest that you make sure that they're mindful that if it continues and it's detrimental, like a cancer to the rest of your organization, that you may eventually have to put them on a performance plan. And that's where you implement the 3-strike rule and you're out. But I would also suggest that you really need to have your expectations of what and how you want them to operate on a daily basis very clear. Have that conversation. Confirm and validate that they understand it, they get it, and they want to get better at resolving it. And then you can be there as an agent of support, making sure removing barriers, giving them feedback, and then you kind of work it as a team. You, their manager or their leader, and them together as a team, and then they feel your support versus your judgment. If they don't come around, though, you need to also be ready to take the action, the 3-strike rule. Allowing them to continue to operate that way is like a cancer in your organization. It's going to undermine you and the rest of your staff in ways you don't even know on a daily basis, and it will need to be addressed.
Excellent. Great counsel, Tom. Another question came through. What type of team building activity do you suggest?
Well, I would go back to one, celebrating successes and wins is one that we often forget about. I've often forgot about my own personal life, leading businesses and managing. I get so focused on solving problems and dealing with problems that I really forget sometimes to celebrate the big wins that create the momentum and the motivation. Also, often what we do with leadership teams, we'll call them C-level leadership teams, is we do a yearly offsite with team building exercises, and we get out of the business. We head off to some place, some retreat. So they're not thinking about being in the business on a yearly basis. We recraft, update the vision, the plans for the upcoming year, and then we organize a team activity to kind of build those healthy, functional relationships. You can do those on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. Kind of depends on what you have the appetite for, the funds for, or what your team motivates your team. Clearly getting out of the work, building that team rapport, doing team activities. We also have some other constructs that I coach teams on. which is it's getting more into the details of how I coach. And what I do is we have a weekly operation meeting where we get together and check the status of priorities, scorecards, how people are doing on their priorities and deliverables. We do that, lead that in an open, honest, helpful fashion. So we build good team health. And then when we hit quarterly achievements, we have celebration environments or in meetings where we celebrate the wins of the quarter and replan what's coming up for the next quarter.
Excellent. Great response. Thank you. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. With that, Tom's got his information up there on the screen. We'll leave that up for a bit if you want to reach out to him with additional questions. Tom, we appreciate you coming on with us today. We appreciate all the attendees being here. We will wrap up a little early, give you guys 5 minutes back to your day, or if you have a 10 o'clock meeting, time to refill your coffee or your soda or water. But thank you for being here. We look forward to having everybody with us next Tuesday, 9 a.m. And until then, everybody have a great weekend, be safe and enjoy, and we'll see you on Tuesday morning.
And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody.